All right. So let's begin Lud-in-the-Mist, chapter 25. So what's happened is Nat finally has the proof that he needs in order to prosecute Endymion Lear, who in another life was, I don't remember what the name of the character, that's so bad. But anyway, he was responsible for the murder of Farmer Gibbety, in addition to the fairy freed. Chapter 25. The law crouches and springs. Literally, Master Polydore Vigil received the severest shock of his life when a few days after the events recorded in the last chapter, there reached him the warrant against Endymion Lear, duly signed and sealed by the lawman of the district of Swan-on-the-Dapple. Dame Marigold had been right in saying that her brother was now completely under the dominion of the doctor. Master Polydore was a weak, idle man, who nevertheless dearly loved the insignia of authority. Hence his present position was for him an ideal one. He had all the glory due to the first citizen who has, moreover, effected a coup d'etat, and none of the real responsibility that such a situation entails. And now this terrible document had arrived. It was like an attempt to cut off his right hand. His first instinct on receiving it was to rush off and take counsel with Endymion Lear himself. Surely the omniscient, resourceful doctor would be able to reduce to wind and thistledown even a thing as solid as a warrant. But respect for the law, and the belief that though everything else may turn out vanity and delusion, the law has the terrifying solidity of reality itself, were deep-rooted in Master Polydore. If there was a warrant out against Endymion Lear, well then, he must bend his neck to the yoke, like any other citizen, and stand his trial. Again he read through the warrant, in the hopes that, on a second, it would lose its reality, prove to be a forgery or a hoax. Alas, its genuineness was but too unmistakable. The law had spoken. Master Polydore let his hands fall to his sides in an attitude of limp dismay. Then he sighed heavily. Then he rose slowly to his feet, and there was nothing for it to summon Mumchance. And there was nothing for it but to summon Mumchance, and let the warrant instantly be put into effect. As it was possible, nay, almost certain, that the doctor would be able to clear himself triumphantly in court, the quicker the business was put through, the sooner Master Polydore would recover his right hand. When Mumchance arrived, Master Polydore said in a voice as casual as he could make it, "Oh, yes, Mumchance. Yes, I asked you to come because—" And he gave a little laugh. "A warrant has actually arrived. Of course, there must be some gross misunderstanding behind it, and there will be no difficulty in getting it cleared up in court. But as a matter of fact, a warrant has arrived from the lawman of Swan-on-the-Dapple against, well, against none other than Dr. Endymion Lear." And again he laughed. "Yes, your worship," said Mumchance, and not only did his face express no surprise, but into the bargain it looked distinctly grim. "Absurd, isn't it?" said Master Polydore, "and most inconvenient." Mumchance cleared his throat. "A murderer is a murderer, your worship," he said. "Me and my wife will—" "Me and my wife, we were spending last evening at Moth Green. My wife's cousin keeps the tavern there, and he was celebrating his silver wedding. If your worship will excuse me mentioning such things. And among the friends he'd asked, it was in—" and among the friends he'd asked in was the plaintiff and her aunt. And, well, there be some things that be just too big for any defendant to dodge. But I'll say no more, your worship. I should hope not, Mumchance. You have already strangely forgotten yourself. And Master Polydor glared fiercely at the unrepentant Mumchance. All the same, he could not help feeling a little disquieted by the attitude adopted by that worthy. 2 hours later, after a busy morning devoted to professional visits, and perhaps some unprofessional ones too, Endymion Lear sat down to his midday dinner. There was not a happier man in Lud than he. He was the most influential man in the town, deep in the councils of the magistrates, and as for the dreaded Chanticleers, well, he had successfully... I obviously made a mistake there, but I also just want to have a quick listen to Endymion. It's been a minute. Okay. He had successively robbed them of their sting. Life being one and indivisible, when one has a sense that it is good, its humblest manifestations are transfigured. And that morning the doctor would have found a meal of baked haws sweet to his palate. How much more so the succulent meal that was actually awaiting him. But it was not fated that Endymion Lear should eat that dinner. There came a loud double knock at the door. And then the voice of Captain Mumchance demanding instantly to be shown in to the doctor. It was in vain that the housekeeper protested, saying that the doctor had given strict orders that he was never to be disturbed at his meals, for the captain roughly brushed her aside with an aphorism worthy of that eminent jurist, the late Master Josiah Chanticleer. The law, my good lady, is no respecter of a gentleman's stomach, so I'll trouble you to stand out of the way. And he stumped resolutely into the parlour. Morning, Mumchance, cried the doctor cheerily. Come to share this excellent-looking pigeon pie? For a second or two the captain surveyed him rather ghoulishly. It must be remembered that not only had the captain identified himself with the law to such a degree that he looked upon any breach of it as a personal insult, but that also he had been deeply wounded in his professional pride, in that he had not immediately recognized a murderer by his smell. Captain Mumchance was not exactly an imaginative man, but as he stood there contemplating the doctor, he could almost have believed that his features and expression had suffered a subtle and most unbecoming change since he had last seen them. It was as if he was sitting in a ghastly green light, the most disfiguring and sinister of all the effects of light with which the law cunningly plays with appearances, the light that emanates from the word murder. No, thank you, he said gruffly. I don't sit down to table with the likes of you. The doctor gave him a very sharp look, and then he raised his eyebrows and said dryly, It seems to me that recently you have more than once honoured my humble board. The captain snorted, and then in a stentorian and unnatural voice he shouted, Endymion Lear, I arrest you in the name of the country of Dorimare, and to the end that the dead, the living, and those not yet born may rest quietly in their graves, their bed, and the womb. Gammon and spinach, cried the doctor testily. "What's your little game, Mumchance?" "Is murder game?" said the captain. And at that word, the doctor blanched. And then Mumchance added, "You're accused of the murder of the late Farmer Gibberty." The words acted like a spell. It was as if Endymion Lear's previous sly, ironical, bird-like personality slipped from him like a mask, revealing another soul at once more formidable and more tragic. For a few seconds he stood white and silent, and then he cried out in a terrible voice, "Treachery! Treachery! The silent people have betrayed me! It is ill serving a perfidious master." The news of the arrest of Endymion Lear on a charge of murder flew like wildfire through Lud. At all the street corners, little groups of tradesmen, prentices, sailors, were to be seen engaged in excited conversation, and from one to the other group flitted the deaf-mute harlot Bawdy Bess, inciting them in her strange, uncontrolled speech, while dogging her footsteps with her dance-like tread. While dogging her footsteps with her dance-like tread went old Mother Tibbs. There we go, that's it. While dogging her footsteps with her dance-like tread went old Mother Tibbs, alternately laughing in crazy glee, and weeping and wringing her hands, and crying out that she had not yet brought back the doctor's last washing. And it was a sad thing that he should go for his last ride in foul linen. "For he'll mount Duke Aubrey's wooden horse. The gentlemen have told me so," she added with mysterious nods. In the meantime, Luke Hempen had reported to Mumchance what he had learned from the little herdsman about the fish caught by the widow and the doctor. The yeomanry stationed on the border were instantly notified and ordered to drag the dapple near the spot where it bubbled out after its subterranean passage through the Debatable Hills. They did so, and discovered wicker frails of fairy fruit, so cunningly weighted that they were able to float under the surface of the water. This discovery considerably altered Master Polydor's attitude to Endymion. Lear. I'll try that again. This discovery considerably altered Master Polydor's attitude to Endymion Lear. Okay, so that is the end of chapter 25. I just wanted to put a nice button onto that, which I feel like I've done. So, next we're moving on to the trial of Endymion Lear. Oh, shoot. So let me just start the next chapter. Chapter 26. Okay. So, Endymion Lear is up for murder charges, and they found the fairy fruit. So I finally feel like, okay, here goes. But how can there still be an hour and 45 minutes left of this book? I guess we'll find out. Chapter 26. Neither trees nor men. In view of the disturbance caused among the populace by the arrest of Endymion Lear, the Senate deemed it advisable that his trial, and that of the widow Gibberty, should take precedence of all other legal business. So as soon as the two important witnesses, Peter Pease and Marjorie Beach, reached Lud-in-the-Mist, it was fixed for an early date. Never in all the annals of Dorimare had a trial been looked forward to with such eager curiosity. It was to begin at 9 o'clock in the morning, and by 7 o'clock the Hall of Justice was already packed, while a seething crowd thronged the courtyard and overflowed into the high street beyond. On the front seat sat Dame Marigold, Dame Jessamine, Dame Dreamsweet, and the other wives of magistrates. The main body of the hall was occupied by tradesmen and their wives, and other quiet, well-to-do members of the community, and behind them seethed the noisy, impudent, hawking, cat-calling riffraff, prentices, sailors, peddlers, strumpets, showing clearly on what side were their sympathies by such ribald remarks as, "My granny's pet cockatoo is terribly fond of cherries. I think we should tell the town yeomanry and have it locked up as a smuggler." Or, "Where's Mumchance? Send for Mumchance and the mare. 200 years ago an old gaffer ate a gallon of crab soup and died the same night. Arrest Dr. Lear and hang him for it." But as the clock struck 9, and Master Polydore Vigil in his priestly-looking purple robes of office embroidered in gold with the sun and the moon and the stars, and the other 10 judges, clad in scarlet and ermine, filed slowly in and, bowing gravely to the assembly, took their seats on the dais. Silence descended on the hall, for the fear of the law was inbred in every Dorimarite, even the most disreputable. Nevertheless, there was a low hum of excitement when Mumchance in his green uniform, carrying an axe, and 2 or 3 others of the town yeomanry, marched in with the 2 prisoners, who took their places in the dock. Though Endymion Lear had for long been one of the most familiar figures in Lud, all eyes were turned on him with as eager a curiosity as if he had been some savage from the Amber Desert, the first of his kind to be seen in Dorimare. And such curious tricks can the limelight of the law play on reality, that many there thought that they could see his evil, sinister life writ in clear characters on his familiar features. To the less impressionable of the spectators, however, he looked very much as usual, though perhaps a little pale. Though perhaps a little pale and flabby about the gills, and he swept the hall with his usual impudent appraising glance, as if to say, "Linsey Woolsey, Linsey Woolsey." But one must make the best of a poor material. "He's going to give the judges a run for their money." "If he's got to die, he'll die game," gleefully whispered various of his partisans. As for the widow, her handsome, passionate face was deadly pale and emptied of all expression. This gave her a sort of tragic, sinister beauty, reminiscent of the faces of the funereal statues in the fields of Gramarye. "Not the sort of woman I'd like to meet in a lonely lane at night," was the general comment she aroused. Then the clerk of arraigns called out, "Silence!" And in a solemn voice, Master Polydore said, "Endymion Lear and Clementina Gibbety, hold up your hands." They did so. Whereupon Master Polydore read the indictment as follows. "Endymion Lear and Clementina Gibbety, you are accused of having poisoned the late Jeremiah Gibbety, farmer and lawman of the district of Swan-on-the-Dapple, 36 years ago, with a fruit known as the berries of merciful death." Then the plaintiff, a fresh-faced young girl, none other, of course, than our old friend Hazel, knelt at the foot of the dais and was given the great seal to kiss. upon which the clerk of arraigns led her up into a sort of carved pulpit, whence in a voice, low but so clear as to penetrate to the furthest corners of the hall, she told, with admirable lucidity, the story of the murder of her grandfather. Next, Mistress Ivy, flustered and timid, told the judges in somewhat rambling fashion what she had already told Master Nathaniel. Then came the testimony of Peter Pease and Marjorie Beach, and, finally, the document of the late farmer was handed round among the judges. "Endymion Lear," called out Master Polydore, "the law bids you to speak or be silent, as your conscience prompts you." And as Endymion Lear rose to make his defence, the silence of the hall seemed to be trebled in intensity. "My lords, judges," he began, "I take my stand not high enough, perhaps, to be out of reach of the gibbet, but well above the heads, I fancy, of everybody here today. And first of all, I would have you bear in mind that my life has been spent in the service of Dorimare." Hence there was a disturbance at the back of the hall and shouts of, "Down with the senators! Down with the senators! Long live the good doctor!" But the would-be rioters were cowed by the thunder of the law, rumbling in the "silence" of the clerk of arraigns. "I have healed and preserved your bodies. I have tried to do the same for your souls, first by writing a book, published anonymously some years ago, in which I tried to show the strange seeds that are sleeping in each of you. But the book hardly aroused the enthusiasm that it so justly deserved." And he gave his old, dry chuckle. In fact, not to put too fine a point on it, the copies were burned by the common hangman, and could you have found the author, you would gladly have burned him too. I can tell you, since writing it, I have gone in fear of my life, and have hardly dared to look a red-haired man in the face, still less a blue cow. And here some of his partisans at the back of the hall laughed uproariously. He paused, and then went on in a graver voice. "Why have I taken all this trouble with you? Why have I spent my erudition? Erudition? That's not a word. Erudition. Why have I spent my erudition and my skill on you thus? To speak truth, I hardly know myself. Perhaps because I like playing with fire. Perhaps because I am relentlessly compassionate. My friends, you are outcasts, though you do not know it, and you have forfeited your place on earth. For there are two races, trees and man, and for each there is a different dispensation. Trees are silent, motionless, serene. They live and die, but do not know the taste of either life or death. To them a secret has been entrusted but not revealed. But the other tribe, the passionate, tragic, rootless tree, man? Alas, he is a creature whose highest privileges are a curse. In his mouth is ever the bitter sweet taste of life and death, unknown to the trees. Without respite he is dragged by the two wild horses, memory and hope, and he is tormented by a secret that he can never tell. For every man worthy of the name is an initiate, but each one into different mysteries. And some walk among their fellows with the pitying, slightly scornful smile of an adept among cats. Oh, I do not know those. Whew, that is a word I do not know. I'm gonna need to look this one up. right. Oops, catechumen. Catechumen? Catechumen, which means a Christian convert under instruction before baptism. All right. Okay. I gotcha. I did actually go to Catholic school, so am I supposed to have known that word? Who knows? Catechumens. And some walk among their fellows with the pitying, slightly scornful smile of an adept among catechumens, and some are confiding and garrulous and would so willingly communicate their own unique secret in vain. For though they shout it in the marketplace or whisper it in music and poetry, what they say is never the same as what they know, and they are like ghosts charged with a message of tremendous import, who can only trail their chains and gibber. Such then are the two tribes, citizens of Lud-in-the-Mist. To which do you belong? To neither, for you are not serene, majestic, and silent, nor are you restless, passionate, and tragic. I could not turn you into trees, but I had hoped to turn you into men. I have fed and healed your bodies, and I would fain have done the same for your souls. He paused to mop his brow. Clearly it was more of an effort for him to speak than one would have guessed. Then he went on, and his voice had in it a strange, new thrill. There is a land where the sun and the moon do not shine, where the birds are dreams, the stars are visions, and the immortal flowers spring from the thoughts of death. In that land grow fruit, the juices of which sometimes cause madness, and sometimes manliness. For that fruit is flavored with life and death, and it is the proper nourishment for the souls of man. You have recently discovered that for some years I have helped to smuggle that fruit into Dorimare. The farmer Gibbety would have deprived you of it, and so I prescribed for him the berries of merciful death. This admission of guilt caused another disturbance at the back of the hall, and there were shouts of, "Don't you believe him? Never say die, doctor!" and so on. The yeomanry had to put out various rough-looking men, and Master Ambrose, sitting up on the dais, recognized among them the sailor, Sebastian Thug, whom he and Master Nathaniel had seen in the fields of Gramarye. When silence and order had been restored, Endymion Lear went on, "Yes, I prescribed for him the I just felt like I lost him there for a second. So he's basically admitting it. I mean, he is admitting it. Yes, I prescribed for him the berries of merciful death. What could it matter to the world whether he reaped the cornfields of Dorimare or the fields of gillyflowers beyond the hills? And now, my lords judges, I will forestall your sentence. I have pleaded guilty, and you will send me for a ride on what the common people call Duke Aubrey's wooden horse, and you will think that you are sending me there because I helped to murder the farmer Gibbety. But, my lords judges, you are I should probably look this up. Yeah, that's what I thought it was, but I swear sometimes I'm just like, I think I know this one, but maybe I don't. Maybe I only think I know how to say a word. That's definitely a thing for audiobook narrators. Or you find out you've been saying a word wrong for 20 plus years. You are purblind, and even in spectacles you can only read a big, coarse script. It is not you that you are punishing me. It is not you that are punishing me, but others for a spiritual sin. During these days of my imprisonment, I have pondered much on my own life, and I have come to see that I have sinned. But how? I have prided myself on being a good chemist, and in my crucibles I can make the most subtle sources yield up their secret, whether it be white arsenic. I'm going to look up these two as well. Rosalgar. Hmm. Um. This thing is iron manganese pyrite? But it's not pyrite, because of that I've heard of. Russellgar. Not a great finding good sources for pronunciations of this one. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's not it. You couldn't hear it, but it was an AI voice. Russellgar. I'm pretty sure that's not it. Russellgar. Russellgar. Uh, apparently found in the Throne of Glass series. Yeah, sure. That AI is never super helpful. Okay, I'm just looking up another word as well. Cantharides. Spanish fly. Got it. That's right. Okay. Of course, my teleprompter goes off. It's doing so well today until it isn't. Whether it be white arsenic, Russellgar, mercury sublimate, or cantharides. But where is the crucible, or the chemist that can analyze a spiritual sin? But I have not lived in vain. You will send me to ride on Duke Aubrey's wooden horse, and in time the double-faced doctor will be forgotten. And so will you, my lord judges. But Lud-in-the-Mist will stand, and the country of Dorimare, and the dreaded country beyond the hills, and the trees will continue to suck life from the earth and the clouds, and the winds will howl o' nights, and men will dream dreams. And who knows? Some day, perhaps, my fickle, bitter-sweet master, the lord of life and death, of laughter and tears, will come dancing at the head of his silent battalions to make wild music in Dorimare. This, then, my lord judges, is my defence. And he gave a little bow towards the dais. While he had been speaking, the judges had shown increasing symptoms of irritation and impatience. This was not the language of the law. As for the public, it was divided. One part had sat taut with attention, lips slightly parted, eyes dreamy as if they were listening to music. But the majority, even though many of them were partisans of the doctor, felt that they were being cheated. They had expected that their hero, whether guilty or not, would, in his defense, quite bamboozle the judges by his juggling with the evidence and brilliant casuistry. Wait, that's not what was written. Casuistry. That's what was written. Okay. Casuistry. Oh, shit. It's quite. Okay. I gotta pick a better punching point. Would, in his defense, quite bamboozle the judges by his juggling with the evidence and brilliant casuistry, instead of which his speech had been obscure, and they dimly felt indecent. So the girls tittered, and the young men screwed their mouths into those grimaces which are the comment of the vulgar on anything they consider both ridiculous. So the girls tittered, and the young men screwed their mouths into those grimaces which are the comment of the vulgar on anything they consider both ridiculous and obscene. Terribly bad taste, I call it, whispered Dame Dreamsweet to Dame Marigold. The sisters-in-law had agreed to bury the hatchet. You always said that little man was a low, vulgar fellow. But Dame Marigold's only answer was a little shrug and a tiny sigh. Then came the turn of the widow Gibbety to mount the pulpit and make her defence. Before she began to speak, she fixed in turn the judges, plaintiff, and public with an insolent, scornful stare. Then, in her deep, almost masculine voice, she began, "You've asked me a question to which you know the answer well enough. I shouldn't be standing here now. Yes, I murdered Gibbety, and a good riddance, too. I was for killing him with the sap of osiers, but the fellow you call Endymion Lear, who was always a squeamish, tender-hearted sort of chap, if there was nothing to lose by it, that's to say, got me the death-berries and made me give them to him in a jelly instead of the osiers. It was pity. It was a pity Master Nathaniel was not there to glory in his own acumen. But it was not only because they caused a painless death that he preferred the berries. He had never before seen them at their work, and he was always a death fancier, tasting and smelling and fingering death, like a farmer does samples of grain at market. Though, to give him his due, if it hadn't been for him, that girl over there who has just been standing up to denounce him and me, and she nodded in the direction of the pale, trembling Hazel, and her father before her would long ago have gone the way of the farmer. And this I say in the hope that the wench's conscience may keep her awake sometimes in the nights to come, remembering how she dealt with the man who had saved her life. It will be but a small prick. It will be but a small prick, doubtless, but it is the last that I can give her. And now, good people, here's a word of advice to you before I go my last ride, a pillion to my old friend Endymion Lear. Never you make a pet of a dead man. That just sounded weird. I guess it didn't sound weird. It sounded weird in my head. Never you make a pet of a dead man. For the dead are dirty curs and bite the hand that has fed them. And with an evil smile, she climbed down from the pulpit, while more than one person in the audience felt faint with horror and would willingly have left the hall. There was nothing left but for the master. Sorry. Okay, something in my mouth. There was nothing left but for There was nothing left but for Master Polydor to pronounce the sentence, and though the accused had stolen some of his thunder, nevertheless the solemn, time-honoured words did not fail to produce their wonted thrill. Endymion Lear and Clementina Gibbety, I find you guilty of murder, and I consign your bodies to the birds, and your souls to whence they came. And may all here present? And may all here present take example from your fate, correcting their conduct if it needs correction, or, if it be impeccable, keeping it so. For every tree can be a gallows, and every man has a neck to hang. The widow received her sentence with complete stolidity, Endymion Lear with a scornful smile. But as it was pronounced, there was a stir and confusion at the back of the hall, and a grotesque, frenzied figure broke loose from the detaining grip of her neighbours, and, struggling up to the dais, flung herself at the feet of Master Polydor. It was Miss Primrose Crabapple. Just going to have a quick listen to Primrose Crabapple again. Also, apparently every sci-fi fantasy book has to have the word deus in it. I will say I'm an author and neither of mine have the word deus in it. But it's gaslamp fantasy, so cozy gaslamp fantasy, so maybe that's just why. I guess I could have one in book 2. That would be the only place for it because there are actual palaces involved. Anyway, I am getting sidetracked. Let's just have a quick listen to the headmistress. Your worship! Your worship! Your worship! Your worship! She cried shrilly. Hang me instead of him! My life for his! Was it not I who gave your daughter's fairy fruit with my eyes open? And I glory in the knowledge that I was made a humble instrument of the same master whom he has served so well. Dear Master Polydor, have mercy on your country. Spare your country's benefactor. And if the law must have a victim, let it be me, a foolish, useless woman, whose only merit was that she believed in loveliness, though she had never seen it. Weeping and struggling, her face twisted into a grotesque, tragic mask, they dragged her from the hall amid the laughter and ironical cheers of the public. That afternoon, Mumchance came to Master Polydor to inform him that a young maidservant from the academy had just been to the guard-room to say that Miss Primrose Crabapple had killed herself. Master Polydor at once hurried off to the scene of the tragedy, and there, in the pleasant old garden where so many generations of crabapple blossoms had romped and giggled and exchanged their naughty little secrets, he found Miss Primrose hanging stone dead from one of her own apple trees. Well, as the old song has it, Mumchance, said Master Polydor, here hangs a maid who died for love. Master Polydor was noted for his dry humour. A gibbet had been set up in the great court of the guild hall. I keep saying gibbet, and then I start questioning myself. Should it be gibbet? Should it be gibbety? Yeah, which is why I went with gibbety. And then I suddenly start questioning myself right towards the end of the book. And the next day at dawn, Endymion And the next day at dawn, Endymion Lear and the widow Gibbety were hanged by the neck till they died. Rumour said that as the doctor's face was contorted in its last grimace, strange, silvery peals of laughter were heard proceeding from the room where, long ago, Duke Aubrey's jester had killed himself. All right. So, that is the end of chapter 26 and the end of this recording for today. And I do apologize for being late, more than usual amount of time late. But most people are watching this not live, it seems, mostly because YouTube isn't pushing it out. There we go. Yeah, I had a meeting, an audiobook narrator meeting. But yes, so we still have a good hour and a half left probably of the audiobook to go, which I'm guessing is going to basically follow Nat trying to rescue his son Ranulph, and also the crabapple blossoms, which if you haven't listened to the whole book yet, or you're not familiar with the book, the crabapple blossoms were the girls of a finishing school, and it was Miss Crabapple Blossom who hung herself, which is quite grim, actually, for a book like this. It's quite grim. Anyway, I will be back tomorrow about 10 to 10:30. I hopefully will see you then. And just because I've been a while since I've introduced myself, I am Shiromio Serio, and I am a professional audiobook narrator, and this book will be out probably sometime early 2026. I will let you know as soon as I find out. Bye for now.